Afternoon, everyone. Just starting this a little bit early to give us a chance to get everybody on board. We've got 100 or so people expecting or registered today. A lot of them will be will have registered to watch this by time shift, as people have registered from all over the world. But lovely to see some old friends on the call already. Hi, Adam. Hi, Ashley. Hi, Chris. Good to see you all. Nice to see you. It's people I wasn't expecting to see as well from the time shift as well. So that's great to see. Lovely to see everyone piling in. And that was a little bit of a lesson learned. So I think I will start these webinars a little bit earlier in the future. So I'm just going to give it one more minute to let people join on, and then we'll kick off. Mr. Collier, Mr. Donnelly, lovely to see you. Mr. Courtney, everyone joining in. Holly, that's nice that you could join the call. Yeah, it's lovely to see everyone joining in. Okay, well, I'm going to get going now, and because there's a bit of preamble to get going. So let me just get myself set up here. Right. Hopefully everyone can see the show, and so just as I get started, just to say, I'll keep the chat and the Q&A box open as we go, and I'll keep my eye on it. However, I'm doing this as a 30-minute presentation. I want to be respectful of people's times. When we were still in the tail end of the pandemic, I did them at an hour. So I've got a lot to cover, and we're going to move through it very quickly. But the idea is that A, you're going to get the slides and the slide deck after the presentation, and B, you know where I am now, and you can ask any questions that you like. So moving on. So this is me. A number of you on the call know me already, for better or for worse. I am the MD and owner of Visual Displays, which we formerly ran under Paradigm AV. I'm not going to read all that out to you, but apart from the day job of running the business, I also am a specialist consultant in the areas that we're talking about specifically today. The other thing to say is that I'm currently the chair of VIX's Standard Steering Committee, or SteerCo as we call it, and I lead VIX's steering group, and I've written or co-written a number of the standards that we're going to talk about today. And as Mr. Harvey is on the call, one of the leaders of the LTSMG, the Learning and Teaching Spaces Management Group, which is the technology managers group for universities, I'm very proud to have an association with them too. So before we get going, I just wanted to run a quick poll. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes doing this, because I just really wanted to find out about who we've got on the call, what the kind of the demographic are. If you could just start filling that in as we go, who you are, what you'd like to get from today's webinar, and also because we're going to be talking quite a lot about projection, because that's a very big thing to do with Microsoft's vision of the future that we're going to be looking at. You know, what your current feelings are about projection. While you're doing that, I'll just sort of say a few things about why I'm doing this and what we're going to be covering today. So the first thing to say that I have to say out loud is that although I'm going to be talking about Microsoft and Microsoft's view of the future, these are very much my own views, and I'm not making in any sense or trying to put over that that these are Microsoft views. I am talking now extensively with Microsoft about this, various people. Michelle Bauman, I think, is going to be on the call today, who runs the Teams whole Teams thing in EMEA. He's been a fantastic friend and mentor to me already. And I'm also in touch with people who run the Hive, which we're going to be looking at soon too. The other thing, as a way of background here, is to say that when Microsoft started putting out materials and collateral about their new vision for how Microsoft Teams Rooms, how MTRs would be in the future, and then there was a lot of interest and not concern's the wrong word, but I think the front row layout, which we'll look at in some detail today, threw a rock into the puddle, really, because I think it made people kind of rethink their thoughts about displays from the bottom up. So I produced a white paper initially, which then got circulated extensively within Microsoft, and it's now been edited so that it can be circulated widely. It's about 40 odd pages, so careful what you wish for. However, there's a link there about how you can download that for those who haven't seen that. But I think quite a lot of people are on the call today are actually on the call because they've seen the white paper. Let's have a quick look at the poll and actually share the results. Hopefully you can see that. So we've got about 20% end users, about 10% AV consultants, about 20% AV design or pre-sales people, about 20% integrators, 22% IT management, and 11% other. And that one quite fascinates me, and I wonder who you are. Maybe put it in the chat if you didn't go into that category. And then what do you want to get from today's webinar? Well, that was a multiple choice, and that's pretty much unsurprising. So you're saying that 75% of you want to understand how to create Microsoft Teams rooms for front row screens and layouts. Yes, of course, Kevin Donnelly. I have manufacturers, and I forgot to put that on the list. And thank you for pointing that out. And then almost 80% of you want to get ideas and insight for hybrid space design. I'm using MTR, Microsoft Teams Room, as a kind of a catch-all phrase for hybrid spaces, and that's learning as well as meeting spaces. And around 50% want to use how to use projection for MTRs. And then because Microsoft is very heavily using projection, what we're going to look at are projected systems that they are showing. I just wanted to get an idea of people's feelings about projection already, because one of the elephants in the room here is that some people do have a poor experience of projection. But however, that's actually what we're seeing here is relatively encouraging. So a quarter, 26%, 25% are very happy with the idea of using projection now. 30% are happy but do have some concerns. So that's just over half. 30% are undecided or don't mind which display type they use, and 22%, so a fifth, are concerned or don't believe that it can work. So I think that was very helpful for me and hopefully helpful for you. And on that basis, I will hopefully adjust what I say as we go around. So let's move on. Now, I think the first thing I want to do is to show you the video that Microsoft have put out. They put it out late last month, and I've taken a very deep look at this because I think it's very exciting. What they've done is they've completely updated their facility on the Redmond campus, on their main campus in the Seattle area, and I think this would be interesting to watch. It's 4 minutes. I think it'd be good use of our time and set some context for it. So let's see if we can make this run. If there's any issues,
welcome to
put it
Hive.
into
We've
the
been working
chat.
here for really almost a decade now on the internal employee experience for all of our conference rooms and workplaces worldwide.
You would not imagine that there is a building in Microsoft which is full of people sort of experimenting with space and furniture and how people are working.
So our team here is a partnership across our own employee experience team, our global workplace services team, as well as the research and development teams building the product.
It's also our living laboratory. Lots of movable components. You got cardboard tables and styrofoam things that we can move around and do rapid prototyping and testing. So it's our little garage that we can tool around with stuff.
Around the time of the pandemic, one day, everybody around the world just stopped using all of our conference rooms. Very quickly, we realized, okay, something big is happening here. We have a new world where everyone can meet all the time from wherever they are. At the same time, we lost a lot of the human connection. What we are looking at is a sea change in the way that workplaces are going to be designed.
When we gather together to consider how to solve a problem, we all have different ways of approaching it, different ways of looking at it.
Probably the funnest part of my job is figuring out how to break stuff so that then we can figure out how to fix it.
We've got ideas in here that literally came together with a cutting knife, some duct tape, and some cardboard.
I am lucky to be in this space at just the right time. We have accelerated a decade-long change, and we've compressed it in 2 years.
Our work here is made possible because of the platform that we have, and specifically the Teams experience. Every room you walk into, it's just a Teams room, just like the software that's on your device. That's the magic of having a consistent, powerful collaboration platform that get better all the time. It's that partnership that makes all this possible.
And I think creating spaces like this and bringing in real consumers of those spaces and testing this in real environments is really important.
Companies spend huge amounts of money on commercial real estate every year. They're all thinking about how do they need to evolve their workplace, and changing that real estate is especially challenging.
They involve physical changes to the room and furniture, technical changes to the audio-visual equipment and software, and then, of course, trying to optimize this idea of including everyone.
And we will show them rooms that look like the rooms that they're familiar with, and then the exact same space that we've transformed. In one case, we have our fully remodeled room, and that's been fully thought through end to end for an optimal hybrid experience, but at a higher cost. And then in another case, we have a room where we retrofitted it with new furniture and hardware and software, but without changing the fundamental structure of the room. And that eliminates a huge amount of cost in that space while still bringing a real hybrid between the physical and the virtual.
The work that we've done and the work that we continue to do has so much value to external customers that we're going to start to intentionally turn those standards outward.
And so those standards really form the sort of quality guarantee to have that experience for a remote attendee while still giving the people in the room an experience that's meaningfully better. That's the kind of magic that we want to drive.
We're working every day trying to figure out what experiences do we push out that make sense not just for Microsoft, but for everyone.
Okay, hopefully everybody saw and heard that okay. I love that video for all kinds of reasons. I mean, it's just 4 minutes there, but you can see they spent some days and great care doing that, and because it's very much my area of interest, and because this is such a developing area, where I feel that that whole thing about continuous learning is a really accelerated process. For me and everyone that I'm working with at the moment, it's a really important video. So just to think about then, what are the items that we can focus on from this video? What we see there, or what we're going to focus on particularly, is they've got one completely new, modernized space, and they've got one so-called refurbished space. Some really interesting talk about standards, and for those of you who know me will know how much that it makes me happy. But just thinking about it in a more granular level, there are issues there to do with the display, the lighting, the camera position. For those of you who follow my LinkedIn post, I'm going to be talking about that again, but the LinkedIn post I put in last week about this camera position had the most incredible feedback of pretty much all the LinkedIn posts that I've put out, and I think that kind of it shows what an issue, what a kind of can of worms we've got there. That there are things to do with room finish, room layout, and sight lines, standards, of course. Training and certification, touched on that very briefly, and then, if you like, the products that my company, the products and services that my company makes, and then the consultancy services that I offer. So let's crack on. I'm going to do this quickly. Like I say, we've got 15 minutes left. I'm going to do this very quickly. And I will stick around at the end for those of you who want to do a bit of a Q&A at the end of it. But please do keep it up in the chat or on the Q&A panel. So from late last year, what we saw was Microsoft, putting out some collateral. So that image top left there is a kind of a rendered a CAD image of a new front row layout, an early version of it, and then also something that they did earlier at the Hive was to have these two side-by-side projection there. You can see it's side-by-side, got a slightly different color temperature between the two. But now what we see on what they've put out in this video is a kind of mature and developed offering, and it's that one particularly that we're going to look at. And then the other one is this so-called refitted space. That's very interesting because it's got a U-shaped table, and I don't know if you noticed on the video as well, but they have a sort of a high jump seat at the back. In some large meeting spaces, you've got these jump seats at the side. They've got this sort of high table at the back, and that's quite an interesting proposition. However, I think that one of the principles that a lot of you will be thinking about in teaching spaces and in sort of larger meeting rooms is how these principles can be used, if you like, across the board in hybrid spaces, and not just for these sort of shallow layouts as well. And I think that there's a lot there that we can look at. But just on that basis, looking at that sort of smaller a space where they're using a smaller projector, and this kind of like a half oval table, I think that you can see that this 21:9 aspect ratio can and will work for conventional rectangular rooms, with the usual long table or wedge-shaped table. So, but one thing that I think is so important to emphasize is just the absolute basic of an MTR room design, and that is to get the display size right. Now, the one of the reasons I said that a rock has been thrown into the pool is that if you look at this slide or this video capture, I've got a couple of these that we'll use during the presentation. What you'll see is that there's a content window there. It's an Excel sheet or something, and it's half, maybe 60% of the height of the image. And just thinking about how that will get get shown to the back of the room, I think, then this kind of throws up the fact that we're going to need to be thinking about display sizes in a completely, new way. And when we come to the camera positions slide, I think, that will really throw something up. So just to drill down that in a little bit more detail, is that we're going to have to think about the content windows within Teams layouts, and particularly front row layout, but also to prepare for a future where there are going to be different layouts, maybe user controlled layouts and so forth, where the relative size of icons and windows and so forth can be adjusted. But just to run through the math on that, using DiskAS in a fairly conventional way, but applying it to the content window rather than to the height of the image, then you get a much different metric there. So then, the farthest viewer, in the case of where that content window is 60% of the image height, then the viewer then only wants to be 3.6 times away, the height of the image away from that. I run other sessions on DiskAS, and please look out for one of those. But the takeaways from that is that, first of all, it is really important to use the Avixa DiskAS standard. Use it critically, adjust it to how you need to use it. These are not tablets written in stone. They're not laws. They're there for you to use. But when you go through that process, make sure that you show your workings and show how you versionized the standard, because then, and it's part of the process of getting the users to buy into the process. But this is something that I am talking about, the guys with the the Hive, because we're really even in much smaller spaces, we're going to need displays way larger than flat panel displays can often provide, particularly when it comes to front row. But if you like, another elephant in the room. I don't want to extend that elephant metaphor too much, but if you look closely at the video, and these are two, if you like, screenshots, screen grabs from different parts of the video, same space, but you can see that the right-hand image has got much lower contrast ratio than the one on the left. And because in this case, they are, they've got using a relatively conventional projection screen rather than ambient light rejecting projection screen. This is why I presume, this is my presumption, but all of the spaces that they are showing, the lighting is completely controlled, and there's really quite limited lighting in that area. And if you like, so one of the big questions that we're looking at today is not just how can we make these systems, but how can we make these systems where they will actually work in realistic ambient light levels, and looking at if you like, looking in practice and looking at how buildings actually work. Using the SI units, that means typically somewhere between 300 to 500 lux of illuminance of ambient light falling on the working plane, which is a posh word for the table or the desk. If Microsoft have really pinned their colors to using projection, and but the point is that if we use projection, it's just got to be done properly, and so if you like, the previous slide, image size is the quantity. The second part of it is quality. How do we get the quality of the image up? And it's just about the contrast. The contrast is the deliverable. So both these images are taken with an iPhone, either mine or an engineer's iPhone, neither of which have been retouched. The one on the left is a project that we did at Glasgow Uni. LTSMG alumni will know that's something that I make a big fuss about. I'm very proud of that job. And the image on the right is a typical area, is something that's often seen on campus, on estates, where unfortunately the building services in the form of the lighting they're delivering to the displays or the screens is killing the image there. The two takeaways from here is that Avixa now has a new standard to replace PISCAR, projected image system contrast ratio, and it's now ISCAR, image system contrast ratio. And as the name implies, that's completely technology agnostic. I was one of the co-writers on both the original and the new one, and that's a really major move forward. However, just to drill down on the detail a little bit further, the issue here is about black levels. Brightness is a word for how, if you like, bright something appears to something, a subjective or received thing. But what we need in order to achieve these images that Microsoft want to show in Teams rooms, then having good black levels is really important. We have a number of tools that can help you do that, and that's something that you can click on the links for. So the process for that is that there's a kind of a specification funnel where you go look at the size, then the contrast elements, and then the resolution, and then you go through that little kind of work loop, bit. You go through that little kind of process flow in order to get to it. But the point is that you must always specify the screen before the projector, and that does invert how people have done things in the past, but that's the basic principle of what has to happen. Now, 21:9 is it seems to be now the practical specification call for how people are going to be doing things today. Now, we can make these 21:9 images using projection, and the way that we do it typically is to break the thing down into a modular form, which is to have the source and then some form of external processor, and then to use a 4K UHD projector. Those of you with eagle eyes will see that Microsoft are using an Epson 3LCD projector with a UST lens. The UST lens is if you like the significant part of that for a variety of reasons. But what we are saying to clients who are really not sure about this is that the other thing that we are doing is using the same configuration or the same kind of system architecture, is that we are supplying the same width screens but full height 16:9. And this means that not only can you have the 21:9 front row strip on screen at full width, full size, you can adjust the height of it so that the face-to-face part of it, the eye-to-eye part of it can be adjusted, but also you can show the full normal content on that as well. And as it costs pretty much the same, then that's the recommendation that we have. As things stand, I think things will develop, but for those of you who want to make a move forward on that, that's our kind of practical suggestion. Now, this was the thing that really caught some interest last week. So Microsoft seemed to be using the Jabra Panacast 50 bar in a number of the spaces. Other brands are available, I'm sure, but I think the positioning of this is the thing to focus on. So on a bespoke mount, it's been placed in free space, which means the camera is placed to give the best output for remote participants. Even more important, it liberates the entire display design, which means that the image height, the width, and the vertical positioning can all be optimized. And the significance of this can't be understated for the future of hybrid workspace design. So Microsoft is showing here, I think, that medium and larger MTRs will use projection, but on the one hand, projection means that we can have pretty much any size and aspect ratio we want, but in the past this means that the camera gets pushed to an uncomfortable positions. This simple solution means that room design 101 is that you can get the display design right for everyone in the space, and you can achieve this really simply and elegantly. So here in this example, the VC camera is tied to the soundbar. Now this works beautifully here where the front row style layout has a single wide row of seating, but for regular spaces where the bowling alley style of a three-sided table has to serve larger room capacity, then I think we'll see leading manufacturers provide these micro form cameras is cameras only, separated from the audio element. So then that means the camera can be placed in the optimum position, and then the Microsoft vision that they're putting out of spatial audio can then be realized by the audio specialists. So another way of doing this sort of eye-to-eye thing is to embed the camera into the space, which we are doing now. Lighting is a part of this, which I'm running tight on time. I've bitten off quite a lot here, but the lighting is really important. So do use the Avixa standard, which I can advise you on as well. I can see there's quite a bit happening on the chat now, but I'm going to sprint for the line. I want to be respectful of people's time. Then I'll stick around for 5-10 minutes afterwards to answer questions, assuming that I can. So the use of the word standards, you need to be very careful and specific about where you go with that. Please do read that. It's interesting to see a number of people getting these Microsoft Teams Rooms Technical Solutions accreditation. I think it's going to be interesting to see when there might be the equivalent for projection, lighting and room layout and so on. Another part I think about this front row thing is that I really do believe that these twin display layouts will be a thing of the past. Just to come to a conclusion here, there's a larger slide deck here with some other sort of supporting material at the end of it. You will get this after the display. So we supply all these displays, and it's part of our digital canvas range. We do full packages, and that can include anything from a lab meter laser survey. We do all the design, we supply the screen, we do the 3D CAD and the full instructions. We supply the ambient light projecting screen, all the mounting, the framework and the camera mount. And then you can buy, if you want, the specified projector from us or locally. And also I provide specialist consultancy in this area that we're talking about, and this is not AV consultancy, and it's not it's not AV design. It's a complementary thing, which is why you can source this. So for the end users or manufacturers there that amongst the audience here, you can actually procure my services through AV consultants and major integrators, because I do this as a support service. So I'm going to take a bit of a break for a breath here, and because I just want to say thank you for those of you who are going to be leaving on the half hour, and thank you for joining me. But I'll just carry on now and talk about some and have a look at what we've got in the chat and answer some questions and see if I can actually come up with something that makes sense in answer to the questions. So, Mark, you are one of the person who ticked the bottom of that list. Over the past 10 years, and as an industry within AV, we've shifted away from projection. Are we really sure we want to go back down this path again? Well, the answer is yes, Mark. First of all, for the moment, we haven't really got a choice, because until we get down to the 0.9 millimeter pitch DV-LED, and they get down to the right price level, and they get the luminance levels low enough, then the answer is yes, and it is possible. So, Matt, you've asked, read the content. Why in that image you shared, the users have joined the meeting from their devices and viewing the content. On the content window, you shared that, okay, and viewing the content on those devices. Yeah, I can't really speak to that here, Matt. That's quite a long conversation, but please pick this conversation up with me offline. Just ping me on LinkedIn or email me. So Paul picked up on that. saying, so perhaps Paul's answered your question better, but saying all UC rooms should be designed without the requirement for a user to supply a device. If they decide to bring one, then that's up to the user, but they should not be required to do so. Okay, well, that's obviously a conversation that you two guys have been having with each other. Okay, so now we're talking about the camera and the position. So that Jabra mini camera has it's a composite of 3 cameras. So Jens Butner is saying that it picks up people at the side. So Paul, you've mentioned eye contact. I think that's one of the important things about using these small form factor cameras, because that's the way that you can put the camera actually in front of the screen. If it's small enough and you position it, I think people can quite easily get used to doing that. And if you think, you have to think in terms of, in my view, you have to think in terms of a hierarchy of requirements here. And if you like, the thing that's at the very top of requirements is to get the display size and position right, because you just have to ensure that everybody in the room, the front and at the back, can engage with the content, can engage with the remote users properly. And I think that that what Microsoft have done there, positioning that camera is, if you like, the first but a really major step forward there. And we've been talking about that in design circles for a while now, but to see it done like that is really effective, because what we're talking about here is not people spending shed loads of money to get a good result, but just taking just stripping the design back to first principles and having a fair look at that. But again, you see that, looking at this chat here, it's really interesting to see that this camera position thing has really caught people's attention, and the chat that we've got here, reflects that. We make displays, we make them in all different formats. We do them as freestanding, and we can put the camera in various places. We do curved screen displays because we have a background in simulation and immersive displays. But this thing about where you put the camera when the display gets big enough and in the right position is absolutely central. Right, so now we've got a couple of questions. Ken, thank you for the question. Nice to see you on the call. Asking about front row. Will this create a new range list of front row certified products, or would existing teams certified be good enough to reproduce an optical front row experience? Well, Ken, this is actually quite specifically a Microsoft question, and if you like, it's above my pay grade to answer that specifically. However, I think that the design and the practice around using screens like this, it does require another level of skill. One of the, coming back to the comment, I think it was Mark made in the chat, making some cynical noises about projection, is that what he's effectively saying, and it's true, is that you can buy a really good projector, a really good screen, and the thing can still look absolute rubbish. And so the point about projection or these large screens, it's a practice. It's not like buying the normal large format displays, sticking it on the wall, and away you go. But this is where we as AV practitioners and as kind of informed end users, this is where we distinguish ourselves from the pure IT function, because that's what Microsoft have done, I think, that makes this whole movement really, really special. Because what they're doing is that they're kind of, it's not just about the Microsoft apps and the whole Windows and Teams environment, and all the hardware, all the certified hardware that all the manufacturers have got there. It's about how you take it out into free space and deliver a user experience, and that, if you like, is the secret sauce. And if if you like, that's, if you like, specifically where, where my consultancy takes place, because that's a different proposition. You can draw it as a Venn diagram, if you like, and they overlap very heavily, because if you think in terms of these of what you need for room design, then you do need to be AV literate. You do need to know how the AV kit works. I haven't answered your question terribly well, Ken, because as I say, that is above my pay grade. But I will consult with my Microsoft friends and try and give you a proper, intelligent answer there. Kevin, I think you've done the same trick. So I've done the same thing to me here. Kevin, you're asking, can an MTR output 3 displays? One in landscape as standard with content and far end camera views, one on each side in portrait with the chat and other info in the main one in the center. Okay, so you're asking about a specific 3 output or 3 display content. The answer to that is I don't know at the moment. I suspect not, but I don't know. However, one thing that I think is very clear is that is this whole thing about screen layout, and it's not just front row, but the whole Teams MTR and Teams display experience that's going to develop. For what it's worth, I believe that different things will get added into the mix, not just different layouts, but if you like, the ability for the users to tweak it, make the content bigger, make the content window bigger, and then take a hit on the size of the remote participants, and so on. But like I say, that is my personal view, and that's very much an outsider's view, and I really am not trying to speak on behalf of Microsoft. So James, who I've had a really great offline discussion with already in the last couple of days. So James, he's saying in the hierarchy of requirements, the feeling of eye contact for the remote participants is a close second, in my opinion, to display comfort for people in the MTR. Absolutely, James. However, I think the thing is you have to unpack what display comfort means, and it refers to not just image size, but if you like, the height of it. One thing you do see as a very common fault is that the baseline of the display is way too low, and then the whole thing gets ranged up so that you get the eye contact people at the bottom, and then you've got to crane your neck backwards to get to the top of the screen. And I think that if you bite the bullet and accept the concept that having a small form factor camera placed in front of the screen in free space, where everyone can see it, but it's just a small thing that's there, then I think you kind of you break through that. But you do, granted, you do have to make that initial leap of faith, if you like, to move into that design. Ashley Tisha, thank you. So you say you guessed that the angled VC bar stand-up is still just a prototype at the Hive, or is it available widely? Well, it was shown at Infocom, it was shown on the Epson booth, I think, and it was also shown, I believe, on the Microsoft booth. But I don't know if it's available widely yet, but we make those. We make this stuff, and that's a very simple thing to do. And the thing is that particular bar will fit a certain room configuration or a certain standard room size. What we do is that by using parametric design systems, we use advanced parametric CAD, is that we can scale any of our designs up or down, and that also applies to the camera bar. The stand that is being used, as I've seen it, and I haven't looked at it closely, is a relatively simple thing. The stands that we make are actually have quite sort of fine micro adjustments in it. One of the things about doing projection properly is to, although Epson and the other manufacturers have got really, handy quick point things where you can pull in the corners of the screen. You do not want to do that if you possibly can, because you want to deliver the image in perfect geometry. So that stand, although a relatively simple thing, has to be designed properly, and the projector has to be designed and installed according to best practice. Well, I'm, in a way, I'm sorry that, that I kept this to a 30-minute webinar, but like I say, I really did want to be respectful of people's times. Now we're all back out there. Although in the summer heat, I have to say, it does feel like the pandemic days. He said wearing a pair of shorts, like you did when we're all locked in at home, not wearing our usual work clothes. However, this is the 7th of the webinars that I've done, and this whole thing about the Hive has really caught a lot of attention. Because it really kind of has embodied a lot of the things that I've been working on in the background before and have been thinking about. And obviously some really clever people and people, cleverer than and large, well-funded teams at Microsoft have done some fantastic work. And that video, as I was saying, it kind of bespeaks a really big piece of work behind that. But I think that the thing I like about that is that it's proper thought leadership, because there are principles there that can be used in a platform and hardware agnostic way. And I really, and I think you have to take your hat off to anyone or a company who does it like that. So I think we've run out of questions now. I will download the chat and try and respond properly to everyone else. I'll get on the basis of the conversation now. I'll probably make a couple of changes to the slides before I put the recording and the slides out. Our marketing agency will put that out soon. But thanks so much for being on the webinar. So many of you actually stayed with me, even though we've gone way over time. As you can see, this interests me. It's my passion. My company can help you do this, all this right now, and I can help you personally with my consultancy to actually look at the bigger picture and to make good calls at high level before you get down to choosing the technology. So thanks so much to everyone again. I'm going to sign off now, and I look forward to seeing you again on a webinar in the future. Anybody who wants anything, you've got me on LinkedIn, I believe most of all, or just ping me or the company anytime, and we'll be delighted to get your questions. So thanks everyone, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.